مصطفى أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. What I want to do today is give you a brief introduction to Tazkiyah, and then I want you to openly ask whatever questions that you have. This is a very misunderstood discipline. It is oftentimes a very misrepresented discipline, and therefore the gut reaction of many Muslims has been to pull back and to withdraw. And that may be understandable, but I'm going to suggest to you that we're missing out on a very important legacy of the Deen of Islam. Along with Quran, Hadith, Fiqh, Aqidah, and marriage, Tasawwuf and Tazkiyah are actually one of the most misunderstood ulum, and what their usul are and what their sciences are. Although I prefer to translate ulum as disciplines as opposed to sciences, because it gives them it's a misnomer to call actually ulum al-Islamiyya the Islamic sciences, because the English word science has been used for something else. And ulum al-Islamiyya means the Islamic disciplines of learning and understanding all of creation, be it scientific or non-scientific. Right? It's really actually ulum is an epistemology. So what is the epistemology of spirituality in the Deen of Islam? First of all, Tazkiyah is a word that comes in Quran al-Kareem. In fact, in the Surah Al-Shams, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said the most number of qasam, has invoked the most number of oaths in the entire Quran for Tazkiyah. وَالشَّمْسِ وَالضُّحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا 7 qasams فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. All of these 7 oaths were taken by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that being we should never need to take even a single oath, but for the sake of mu'mineen, part of the balagha of the Quran, for ta'qeed, after taking these 7 oaths, then he said in Quran, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. So this means indeed is successful, falah. A person has attained felicity and bliss and success and happiness, that person who has done tazkiyah of their nafs. So it means that this is not something that is optional, something that is extra. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself is swearing 7 times in Quran about the importance of this tazkiyah. In fact, in another ayah of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it clear that without this purification, there can be no success on the Day of Judgment. يَوْمَ لَا تَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Yawma, prepare for that day, anticipate that day, be well aware and forewarned of that day. لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ, that none of your monetary wealth, your worldly possessions will be of any benefit to you. وَلَا بَنُونَ, nor your sons, none of your worldly relations will be of any benefit to you. The only person who will be successful on that day, مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ, that person who brings to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a pure or purified heart. Now there are 2 aspects to this purification. One is dealt with what we call sharia and fiqh, and that is called the ability to leave outward sin. You see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Quran, وَذَرُوا ظَاهِرَ الْإِثْمِ وَبَاطِنَهُ, that you must leave all the sin that you do, both the outward sin and the inward sin. So what are the outer sins? That's like lying, drinking alcohol, eating pork, etc. You can find that in the books of fiqh and sharia. What are the inward sins? The inward sins means unlawful, misplaced, misguided lust. Unlawful, reactive anger, hostility, spice, malice, hatred for someone. Unlawful sin means greed and love for this world. Unlawful sin means envy, jealousy for others. Unlawful sin means vanity, conceit, and pride, ujub, kibr, and takabbur in one's heart, etc. So these are the inner sins. How does a person leave those inner sins? That is called the discipline of learning known as tazkiyah. How can a person leave these inner sins? Another way we sometimes explain this, ayah of Quran, وَذَرُوا ظَاهِرَ الْإِثْمِ وَبَاطِنَهُ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in Quran, leave the zahir of sin, stop doing sin. And leave the batin of sin, stop wanting sin. Stop yearning for sin. Stop craving sin. Stop thinking about sin. Stop fantasizing about sin. That requires a deep cleaning. And you have to do both. You have to do both. Now if I were to give my own example, let's say I was to tell you that, alhamdulillah, I've never committed murder. So I've stayed myself from doing that sin. Right? But if I told you I'm always thinking about murder, I'm always dreaming about murder, I'm always craving to murder someone, I'm always yearning to murder someone, but alhamdulillah I didn't murder someone, is that enough to get me off the hook? You'd look at me like I'm crazy. You'd say, what's the matter with you that you want this sin? What's the matter with you that you think about this sin? If I told you every Friday night I go on the internet and I look at scenes of murder, you'd say, you're sick. You say, it's a problem. It's not just enough that you don't do the sin, you've got to stop wanting the sin. Right? That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in Quran, وَذَرُوا ظَاهِرَ الْإِثْمِ وَبَاطِنَهُ, stop doing sin and stop wanting sin. Tazkiyah is that branch of learning of the deen of Islam that trains a person how to stop wanting sin. If a person can stop wanting sin, guaranteed they will stop doing sin. And if we want to play this flirtatious game that we want to keep wanting sin, keep thinking about sin, keep saying sin, there's no way you'll be able to stop doing sin. So tazkiyah, it's one of the sunnahs of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, as part of his nubuwah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Quran al-Kareem, لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, that indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent His special grace and favor on the believers, إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ, when He sent to them a messenger from their own selves, from humankind, لِيَتْلُوا عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ, to recite to them the verses وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and to do their tazkiyah, وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ, and to teach them the book and the wisdom. So tazkiyah is a prophetic function, and it will continue until the end of time. The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-ulama'u warathatul anbiya, that the scholars are the heirs of the prophets. So there will be ulama of tilawat kitab, they're called qurra, qari, mujawwid, they know tajweed. They're going to be ulama of tazkiyah, that is called shaykh, murshid, awliya, siddiqeen, sadiqeen. They're going to be ulama of ilmul kitab, those are the ulama mufassirun. And they're going to be ulama of ilmul hikmah, those are the muhaddiseen and fuqaha combined. So this is the background in Quran for what is tazkiyah. Now you move next to the prophetic model of tazkiyah. How did Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam do this tazkiyah of Sahaba? And I'm going to try to bring you up to a little bit of the history, and then I'll switch to the methods, and then we'll take your questions. Alright? So theory of tazkiyah in Quran, that is done. History of tazkiyah, or theory of tazkiyah, and the sunnah of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Number one aspect is called sohbah. That is why the whole world, including the non-Muslim professors at our universities, call them Sahaba. They are companions of the Prophet ﷺ. So how did the Prophet do their tazkiyah? Through sohbah. Through sohbah. This is, by the way, the real reason why hadith were not written down, is because they're not meant to be written. They're meant to be lived. You see, if the Prophet ﷺ says in front of Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala an, كُنْ فِي الدُّنْيَا كَأَنَّكَ غَرِيبٌ أَوْ عَابِرُ السَّبِيلِ, live in this world, be in this world, as if you're a stranger or a traveler on the path. Abu Hurairah is not going to write it down and come back to the Prophet and look at Rasulullah, look, I got it. He'll tell him, give me that piece of paper. Throw that piece away. I want you to bring me that lived life that is lived according to this teaching. I want you to feel the feeling of the meaning and live that feeling. I don't want you to write the words. So Sahaba have a different understanding of Sunnah. That's why they didn't write it down. They lived it. They lived it. There were words to live by and die by. Alright? So, Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did this tazkiyah by having them live with him. This is called sohbah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in Quran al-Kareem as a continuous model of tazkiyah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha wa kunu ma'as-sadiqeen. O you, a people who aspire to Iman, O you have begun the journey of Iman with your tongue and want to perfect it in your heart. Kunu ma'as-sadiqeen, you must join your very being with those who are truer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Messenger than you are. So sohbah, shown both as a prophetic practice and also as a Quranic injunction. Continue to the next generation, Tabi'in. Tabi'in also kept Sohbah. Who are Tabi'in? They are people who kept the Sohbah of the Sahaba. Who is the first Tabi'in? I want you to imagine, who is that person? The first Tabi'in means the person who just missed Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he heard that there was a prophet and messenger. Maybe he had some friends who had accepted Iman in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he decides, I'm going to go to Medina. I'm going to take Iman in the last and final prophet and messenger. He arrives in Medina Munawwara. And what does he find? He sees that everybody is extremely sad. The people are crying. He doesn't understand. So he goes up to one of them. And he says that I've come from this village in the desert. And I want to meet that last and final prophet. So I said, oh, don't ask us about him. He just passed away an hour ago from this world. That's how you become a Tabi. First Tabi, the person who just missed Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahu Akbar. Imagine. Now he's not going to go back home. So he's going to ask him, well, who are you? He said, I'm Abu Hurairah. He said, did you see him? He said, oh, don't ask me. Oh, did I see him? Did I ever see him? He says, okay, I missed him. I'm not going to let go of you. Right? Now you think Abu Hurairah is going to bring out his notebook and say, okay, here, shabash. Here's a notebook, go. No, he's going to say, you want, and this is why the other Sahaba became teachers. They never conceived themselves like this because they were the greatest students of the greatest teacher. They never thought, they weren't prepared for this, but this role was thrust upon them when Tabi and first Tabi, second Tabi, one after the other, they started coming. And they realized what an immense amana they had, what an immense trust and gift and blessing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala given them, that they were Sahib al-Rasul. Or a woman came, right? A female Tabi'ah. And she met a Sahabiya. A woman who had heard and listened to the Prophet ﷺ. So those women became teachers. They realized they were carrying something. So Abu Hurairah is not going to give him his notebook. He's going to say, okay, if you want to get from me what I got from him, and Abu Hurairah says, yeah, that's what I want. So he's going to say, you have to sit with me. You're going to have to live with me. Because what I got from him, it wasn't just from seeing him. It wasn't just from hearing him. It was from living and associating with him and his sohbah. So the Tabi'ins would say, fine. And many of them used to keep sohbah with many sahaba. And many of them also attached themselves more to particular sahaba. And the Prophet himself instituted this when he was alive on earth. He sent Sayyidina Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen and told all of Yemen, you're going to take all of your deen from him. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala sent Hassan to Basra. That's how he became Hassan al-Basri. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala, when he was Khalifa Amir al-Mu'mineen, he sent Hassan rahimahullah to Basra. And he wrote a letter to the people of Basra. You're going to take all your deen from Hassan. So we have incidents like that as well. Entire communities, cities, Yemen and Basra, entire communities, taking their entire deen from their association and learning with one person, one person. So this is a silsila of sohbah. This is a continuous transmission of associated companionship that is in the history of our deen, is in the practice of the Prophet ﷺ, and is in the theory of Quran al-Kareem. So first feature in the model of tazkiyah is sohbah. Second feature is called su'al, to ask and inquire. I'll just do all three of them together actually for you. Su'al, ittila, and ittiba. Su'al means to ask and inquire. Ittila means to inform the person whose sohbah you're keeping of your condition, of your situation. And these two things are done, asking and informing are done to solicit nasiha, to get advice, and then after that comes ittiba, following that nasiha. So let's start again with the practice of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now if you were to ever read hadith widely, and alhamdulillah so much of it has now come into English, then instead of all of that foolish surfing on random websites that the young Muslims do, they should close the computer, open up a book of hadith, and take a journey into the window of the life of Medina Munawwara. And when you read these ahadith and mubarakah, you will be amazed that a lot of them are Sahaba Ikram asking Nabi Kareem some questions. This is what we call barakah to sa'il, this is the barakah of the questioner. And they were such simple, sincere, straightforward, honest people. They would ask the Prophet every single thing. So ask him. Ask him. In theory of Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, that you should ask the people of dhikr if you don't know. So let's translate it backwards. إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, if you don't know. If you don't know how to do amal in Quran, you know the words, lower your gaze. You know the meaning, lower, you know what that verb means, you know what gaze means, but you don't know how to do it. You know the word taqwa, you know its meaning, but you don't know how to get it. You know these things, but you don't know how to get them for yourself. In kuntum la ta'lamun, you don't know how to do it yourself. Fas'alu, you should go ask. The word Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used in Quran, you should ask, inquire, make su'al of the Ahl Dhikr. Now if you think about it in Quran, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should have said, He should have said, Fas'alu Ahl Ilm. Because what's being said, In kuntum la ta'lamun, if you don't have ilm, so if I don't have ilm, I should ask the ulama. Allah said, no. If you don't have ilm, ask the people of dhikr. Why? Who are the people of dhikr? So the Mufassirun explain this under this ayah, right? That the people of dhikr are those who have ilm, who do amal on their ilm, who practice according to their knowledge, have ikhlas, or sincere in that practice only for the sake of Allah. Why? Because Allah was training us, don't get knowledge just for knowledge's sake. Don't get knowledge for mere intellectual edification. The purpose of your getting that ilm is so you can do amal on it with ikhlas. Therefore you have to get that ilm not just from sahib ilm. You have to get ilm from that person who has been able to make beneficial use of that ilm. Those are the Ahl Dhikr. So in the prophetic practice we find su'al, and in the Quranic theory again we found su'al. So first thing was suhbah, second thing was su'al. Third thing is called ittila. Ittila means to inform. It's very close to su'al and just separating it out because sometimes Sahaba Ikram would simply inform the Prophet. They wouldn't necessarily even know that they need to ask. They just wanted to present their state in front of him. One of the very well-known examples of this is Sayyidina Hanzala radiallahu ta'ala anhu and Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Sayyidina Hanzala was walking in the streets of Medina saying, Nafaka Hanzala, Nafaka Hanzala. Hanzala has become a hypocrite. He's saying about himself, Hanzala has become a hypocrite. So Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq went to him and said, Hanzala, what's the matter with you? And he said that, when I'm with the Prophet I feel one way, and when I'm not with him I feel lower. So I'm a hypocrite. My spiritual state is heightened when I'm with him, and it's lowered when I'm not with him. So I should do the same because I'm always in front of Allah. So Sayyidina Abu Bakr said that, Hanzala, that's the definition of nifaq, hypocrisy, but I'm also a munafiq. Come, let's go together to the Prophet and inform him of our condition. This is ittila. Ittila. And as some of you, if you know the hadith, Nabi Akram told them, he laughed at them, and he smiled at them, and he said, oh, children, right? If you're the same way you are like with me when I'm not around, well, the angels will be coming down in different versions, have to shake your hand or to kiss your hand or etc. It's not possible. That's not human. People will have varying states. People will have varying states. But they informed the Prophet of their spiritual condition. Right? So we had suhbah, we had su'al, we had ittila, ittiba. Ittiba means that when you, after the questioning and the informing and during the association, when you receive nasiha, you follow that nasiha. You follow that nasiha. There's many examples of this. Obviously in the Quran, Sahaba followed the Prophet Tabi'in. The word Tabi'in can be translated in two ways. Tabi'in can mean the generation that follows, the successive generation. So some people translate it as successors, right? But the word Tabi'in also comes from the same root, which is ta, ba, ayn. And Tabi'in can also mean those who do ittiba. Can also mean muttabi'in. In other words, the Tabi'in are the people who followed the instructions that the Sahaba told them. The Tabi'in are the ones who followed the instructions that the Tabi'in gave them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran al-Kareem, وَاتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ مَنْ أَنَابَ إِلَيَّ, that do ittiba, man, of that one person, of their sabil. Do ittiba means follow the path, the way, the sabil, man, of that one person, anaba ilayya, who is turned towards us. So you find a prophetic practice and a Quranic theory, again, this notion of ittiba. So this is the prophetic model of tazkiyah, right? And this continued throughout history. In fact, we are nothing more than tabai, etc. Tabi'in, sahaba to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's what we are. That's our hakika, right? And unless, if we think we can disconnect ourselves from this and sort of go it alone, or that knowledge and intellectual edification is sufficient for us, this area, tazkiyah, is precisely the area where this won't work. Because tazkiyah is all about practicing what you already know. You don't need me to give you a 1 hour talk on what is hasad. You need help to get hasad out of your heart. You don't need me to give you a 1 hour talk as to what is lust. You need to get lust out of your heart. Unlawful lust out of your heart, right? So it's not about knowledge. It's about, that's why the word is tazkiyah. It's about purification and rectification, right? And that's learned through sohbah, through su'al, through ittila, and through ittiba of that nasiha. Alright? Now in history, there are a couple of controversies and a couple of things. And I speak very openly, because I don't think, and I think it's been some harm done to tasawwuf, that sometimes people are a bit wary or they mince their words, and that makes people think also tasawwuf is some type of secret society or some cult science, right? So I'm going to speak to you extremely openly today, and I want you to ask me questions extremely openly, inshallah, right? The word tasawwuf is nowhere in Quran. Yes, correct. The word tasawwuf is nowhere in hadith. Yes, correct. I'll give you a similar example. The word tajweed is nowhere in Quran. Yes, correct. The word tajweed is nowhere in hadith. Yes, correct. Words and labels change over time. We're concerned with the hakika. You say, I'm wearing this. You can call it jubba, you can call it thobe, you can call it qamis, you could call it shirt. It wouldn't change what it is, right? It is what it is. You're changing the label can never change what it is. The word tajweed is not in Quran, but everybody in the world, 99.9999% of the ummah calls that system of training yourself to pronounce the letters of Arabic in recitation of Quran correctly, they call that tajweed. The word in Quran is tartil. The word in Quran is tartil. Almost nobody calls it tartil. You can Google and you can find Qari Shaykh Khalil al-Husari's tartil set as opposed to some other set, as opposed to his hadr, right? But otherwise, most people just call it tajweed. Just like that, the word tazkiyah is in Quran. Just like the word tartil is in Quran, most people call it tajweed. The word tazkiyah is in Quran, most people call it tasawwuf. It's just a difference in terminology. What difference does it make to us? We can go back and call it tazkiyah. You can change all the books on tajweed and start calling them kitab al-tartil as opposed to kitab al-tajweed, or the book of tartil as opposed to the book of tajweed. What difference would it make in any case, right? What matters is what is between the covers. So explain this. This is a big myth about the word tasawwuf, right? And some people say it came from the Arabic word safa. Safa means purity, right? Not to be confused with ikhwan al-safa, brethren of purity. That was a particular sort of mystical moral philosophy movement, right? I don't know how many of you are sort of liberal arts and humanities people, or all of you seem to be medicine, engineering people. As the Muslims always have this ajib, when also with sciences, that's what they call it, Ulum al-Islamiyya sciences as well, right? Turbocharged scientific mind. Allahu Akbar. You need a turbocharged qalb. Qalb. Okay. So, not to be confused with that, safa just meant purity. Some say it comes from ashab al-sufa. Ashab al-sufa tasawwuf was a sort of slightly amalgamated version of that. Ashab al-sufa, as all of you know, were those sahaba ikram who dedicated themselves, such as Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Sayyidina Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu, Human, and a few others, to day and night with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ashik Sadiq. They couldn't get enough. They left everything. Lots of people say, no, can you leave everything? You can. Should you? That you need somebody to guide you in your individual situation. Can you? Yes, 100% you can leave everything for deen. 100% you can. Jaiz 100%. Mufti Kamal gives you fatwa. Jaiz 100%. What makes us think it's not jaiz? Is it ideal, preferable? That depends on every individual, their case, their context, their circumstances, and that's why you need elders to decide for you, right? But Sahaba al-Sufa didn't. Not every Sahaba did it. It's a small minority of Sahaba, right? The majority of Sahaba kept earning their livelihood going, along with associating with the company of the Prophet ﷺ. These were those few Sahaba who left all means of living, all livelihood, And day and night they were in suhbah and ibadah and zikr and tilawat and salah. That's all they did. So that's jais. That's jais. Alright? So here some people say the word tasawwuf came from Ashab al-Sufa. Right? The people of the bench, the people normally to translate it like that in English. The people of the rows, different ways you could translate. Obviously there's no bench there. If you go, oh, not benches. We sit on the floor. Right? So here about that word. Now, 3 words. Ba', zikr, and shaykh. So they're going to speak openly. Right? So, the word ba'. The word ba' exists in Quran. Surah Al-Mumtahina mentions the ba' of women. It exists in Hadith. Sahih Bukhari Kitab al-Iman, a hadith narrated by Sayyidina Ubadah ibn Samit radiyallahu ta'ala, mentions the ba' of men. What is that ba' that is mentioned in Quran and Hadith? There are 4 types of ba'. Right? The Arabic word ba' means to make a commitment. To make a pledge, or to make a commitment by means of making a pledge on a particular intention. Alright? To make a commitment to an intention by means of taking a pledge. That is the word ba'. So as we explained to you that one Arabic word takes about 10 to 15 English words to translate. You know, like in Pakistan you give $1 and get 85 rupees. Right? Because the dollar is strong and the rupee is weak. Arabic is strong and English is weak. You don't try. Sometimes you make a mistake and don't try to use one English word to fit Arabic. No problem. Write 10 words. Because it's about meaning. All language is just to convey meaning. You've got to get at the meaning. One Arabic word is powerful. It can convey a meaning to you that there's no one English word that can convey that level of meaning to you. So use 10 if you need to. Use 10 if you need to. So the English for ba' is to make a commitment by means of taking a pledge on a particular intention. That's what ba' is. Alright? Okay. The word ba' is used in Quran and Sunnah in 4 different ways. One is called Baitul Iman. That sometimes when some people came to the Prophet ﷺ to accept Islam, he used the word ba' on them, as opposed to shahada or any other word. He said, I'm going to take a commitment from you by way of pledge that you really believe in La ilaha illallah subhanahu wa ta'ala wa Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu. Right? Okay. Second way the word ba' was used in Quran and also Hadith, but also in Quran. The first one was just in Hadith, is for hijrah. When Sahaba Ikram migrated to Abyssinia, Ethiopia, and more, when the Sahaba Ikram migrated to Medina Munawwara, the Prophet took a ba' for them. This Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُبَايِعُونَكَ إِنَّمَا يُبَايِعُونَ اللَّهِ يَدُ اللَّهِ فَوْقَ أَيْدِيهِمْ. That indeed those who give ba' to you, it is as if they have given ba' to Allah. Literally the hand, that's another place where one English word isn't going to do justice. The hand of Allah is over their hands. Alright? Okay. That's for our colleague in Oxford to explain to you what yad means. I won't do that. I may have a different position than him on that one. Alright? Alright. So that is Baitul Hijrah. Right? What was the nature of that ba'? There are many aspects of that ba'. Right? That you would actually do the Hijrah. One aspect of it was that you wouldn't be in touch with your non-Muslim relatives in Makkah Mukarram after you migrate to Medina Munawwara. There were certain aspects to that the Prophet felt upon taking pledge. Third type of ba' is known as Baitul Jihad in the literature. It's not in Quran, this one's also just in Hadith. But the words in Hadith are Bait al-Maut. That sometimes, again, not of all the Mujahideen, the Prophet took a ba' from some Sahaba Mujahideen. Bait al-Maut. That they would fight until even death would overtake them. Alright? Okay. The fourth type of ba', which is in Quran, that's what I mentioned to you, Surah Mumtahina, the ba' of women, and Sahih Bukhari Kitab al-Iman, ba' of men, that is called ba' at-Tawbah. In that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, let's say in Quran, Ya Nabi idha ja'aka al-mu'minat, that, oh my beloved Messenger, when the believing women come to you to give ba' to you, on what? Ala an la yushrikna billahi shay'a, that they will not associate any idols with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will not yushrikna wala zina, they will not steal, they will not do zina, they will not bury their children alive, they will not do any buhtan, they will not slander anyone, wala ya'sinaka fi ma'ruf, and they will not do any type of sin, they will not disobey you in any known matter. What should you do? فَبَايِعْهُنَّ, you should take their ba'. Second, وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُنَّ اللَّهِ, you should make istighfar to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them. And almost exactly the same words are in Sahih Bukhari, but it's a bit different for the men. For the women came and said they wanted to give ba'. right? And Allah tells us to take their bay'ah. For the man, the Prophet was sitting with the Sahaba, and he said, "Oh my companions, shall I not take your bay'ah?" And they said, "On what, Ya Rasulullah?" And he said almost the exact same words as the ayah, that you won't do shirk, steal, zina, bhutan, you won't do any known sin. And they took the bay'ah, right? So this has been labeled just like the words al-maut were labeled as bay'atul jihad. These words have been labeled as bay'atul tawbah. That the Prophet made people make this firm commitment by means of taking a pledge on what intention? That they would renounce all sin, that they would make true tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is a sunnah amal that is sabit from Quran and Hadith. Now a question arises that is this something that was khas with the Prophet, right? Is this something that is unique to him? So there are books that the Muhaddithin have written on this called the Khasa'is literature, such as Khasa'is al-Kubra, in which they have listed those things that are specifically for the Prophet and not part of his sunnah legacy, such that he could marry more than 4 women, such that the hajj was farad upon him, such that sleeping did not break his wudu, etc. None of those muhaddithin have listed this bay'ah as something that was particular to the Prophet, and no mufassir that I've read under that ayah has said that this was particular to the Prophet. It's part of his sunnah. It's part of the sunnah model of tazkiyah. And the whole model of tazkiyah has to be taken up and propagated. The whole sunnah model of tazkiyah has to be the model that is followed by the ulama of tazkiyah until the end of time. In the time of Sahaba, however, they didn't take this particular type of bay'ah. Why? Because a different type of bay'ah arose in time of Sahaba, which wasn't there in the time of the Prophet, and that's called bay'atul khilafah, bay'ah to the Amir al-Mu'mineen. And no other Sahaba wanted to take bay'ah to Tawbah because they didn't want to make it look like there was some type of rivalry, right? So in the time of Sahaba, you don't find this bay'ah to Tawbah, and it's very difficult to trace historically the origin of when this revived. Some suggest in the Tabi'in, Hasan al-Basri, some say Tabi'in, Tabi'in, some place it later, right? And this may also be a part of that old tradition that is lost to us, that we do, but has not been historicized, has not been textualized historically, right? But it's something that was resumed, I would say roughly around, became more widespread by the late 2nd century Hijri, and then it becomes something standard. Now what is bay'ah? Bay'ah is nothing more and nothing less than an enrollment process. Just like in school, in universities, you have enrollment and registration. Just like when we were a professor at university, we had our registered students and we had auditors. As far as they go, everybody hears the same lecture. But obviously, office hours, you give preference to the registered students. In terms of grading papers, I once had a kid who was an auditor in my class. He even wrote the paper, and he wanted me to read it, right? Now, normally, if every auditor did that, I would say, there's no way I don't have time, right? But because only one of them, I said, okay, since he was so sincere, I read it. But normally, you wouldn't read. What does that mean? You wouldn't take the su'al, you wouldn't work one-to-one, you wouldn't correct, you wouldn't mark their paper because they're an auditor. They're not registered, right? So, bay'ah simply meant to register oneself as a student of a shaykh. That's it. With this intention of tawbah. Bay'ah is nothing more and nothing less than that. You don't worship the shaykh. Shaykh is not a cult leader leading some type of cult following. It's just like you take sometimes a qari sahib as an ustad, means I want to study Quran properly with you. Not that every now and then I show up every once or twice a week. I want, you say in Urdu, I'll say it in English again. पर हम मैं आपको बाकायदा शागिर्द बनना चाहता हूँ, राइट? शेख में आपको शर्फ तलम्मुस हासिल करना चाहता हूँ हदीस में. हम चाहते हैं कि आप हमें बाकायदा आकर पढ़ाएं. I want that you regularly, formally teach us. I want to regularly, formally be your student. We say that to our teachers in hadith, in tajweed, in tafsir, in fiqh. The same thing was said in tasawwuf. That was just the name given to it was bay'ah. That's it, right? It's nothing more, nothing less than that. Bay'ah cannot change anything in Sharia. What is farz and wajib before bay'ah is farz and wajib afterwards. What is haram is equally haram afterwards. Some people think that taking bay'ah, sometimes you reach some maqam. There's no maqam. Did you reach some maqam when you enrolled in Cambridge? That's not a maqam. All you did was register, right? Some people think if I become bay'ah, if I do a sin, it'll be like even greater sin now. It can be a great, it was always a sin. It was a sin before bay'ah and it's the same sin after bay'ah. It doesn't go up and down. It has no effect on Sharia whatsoever. Zikr is nafil before bay'ah and it's nafil after bay'ah. Zikr is still nafil after bay'ah, but normally you will see, just like if a student registers for an elective class I teach, the class is still elective. I mean, I know in the UK you don't have this system. All you guys do is take exams once a year. And see, right? In America, where we have a proper education, no offense attended, right? If somebody enrolls in an elective course, it's always an elective. Enrolling in it doesn't change. It's never going to count for your major. Registering for it doesn't make it count for your major. Acing it, getting a 111, and it doesn't make it count for your major. It's always going to go for your elective credits, right? But normally the students who register for an elective course, they study it more properly. They study it more diligently. They study it more regularly. They study it more carefully. Just like that, anybody can come and listen, and anybody can do zikr. Zikr is open. That I could even teach you if you want. You don't have to be bad to do zikr. Zikr is wide open. But it's observed that a person who decides to make a commitment, it becomes more regular in their zikr. It's observable empirical data, right? It's a sociological, social, psychological, real phenomenon. All right. So enough about bail, so leave the rest for your questions and answers, right? Two things remain, zikr and shaykh. Okay? Zikr and shaykh. Let me do zikr first. Sometimes a person will ask that, okay, don't you not need extra zikr? I mean, ulama who talk like this, right? Really? We don't. That you don't need any zikr because are you trying to suggest that the Prophet Sunnah is not enough for you? And it's a very emotional way of phrasing things, right? It's a very emotionally powerful way to say, look, all the zikr that you need is in the hadith. Why do you need anything more than that, right? And if you phrase it that way 100%, I would agree as well, right? If you think about it in those terms, you would agree. Now, here comes the concept of bid'ah, right? Bid'ah. Alright. When it comes to ibadah, because I don't have time to teach you the whole fiqh of bid'ah. So let's just look at ibadah, right? Because zikr is an ibadah, right? Okay. There are two types of ibadah. And the definition of bid'ah is different based on the type of ibadah. First type of ibadah is farz, wajib, or sunnah ibadah. In farz, wajib, and sunnah ibadah, you cannot do anything that is not mentioned in Quran and Hadith. If you do anything as part of farz, wajib, sunnah ibadah that is not in Quran and Hadith, that can legitimately be called bid'ah. So the definition of bid'ah when it comes to farz, wajib, and sunnah ibadah is that which is not established or proven or mentioned in Quran and sunnah. That's the definition of bid'ah. However, there's another type of ibadah called nafil, mustahab, mandub, recommended, commended, preferable, optional, if you will, ibadah. That, the definition of bid'ah is different. So let me give you an example. Two examples. What are the two most common types of nafil ibadah? Dua and zikr. Yes? The most common types of nafil ibadah are dua and zikr. The definition of bid'ah when it comes to nafil ibadah is you can do anything you want in addition to Quran and Hadith. You can add whatever you want as long as it's not against the Sharia. So the definition here is not ma thabata bil Quran wa sunnah, that which is established from Quran and Sunnah. The definition of bid'ah here is going to be that which is khilaf to Quran and Hadith. Let me give you an example of dua. I think all of you would have probably heard of Imam Sudais. Yes? Imam al-Haram, Imam al-Kaaba, Makkah Mukarramah? No? Yes? Imam Sudais? No. Imam Sudais? You know him? Okay. So in the month of Ramadan, he's a prayer leader in Kaaba. So in the month of Ramadan, he leads Taraweeh prayers. Sometimes he leads the last 10. When he leads the last 10, he also leads witr. When he leads witr, he makes dua. The dua is called qunut in hadith, right? Everybody with me? Okay. In front of everyone in Makkah Mukarramah, and in front of pretty much the whole ummah, either live on TV or later they watch it or it's YouTube or whatever, it's the most public act in the world, I think, leading salah in haram. What does he do in witr? In the dua. He makes some duas from Quran, yes. He makes some duas in hadith, yes. And then he makes all types of duas that are not mentioned in Quran and not mentioned in hadith. And no one in the world calls that bid'ah. In fact, I'll go even so far as to say that dua qunut has not even been left unspecified. It's specifically mentioned in hadith. There are 2 or 3 of them that are marwi, that are narrated in hadith. And he doesn't feel any need to confine himself to just those. Now, if we were to use emotional rhetoric, I could say, Imam Sudais, what are you doing? Aren't the du'as that Nabi Kareem Sallallahu recited in witr enough for you? Do you think you need to add to that? Do you think you need to go beyond that? Right? No one would think like that. Nobody talks like that. MashaAllah, the whole ummah listens to his dua, live recorded, and says Ameen, and cries over the dua and feels the dua, right? Because everybody understands that dua is nafil ibadah. In nafil ibadah, you can do additional to what's in Quran and Hadith. So just everything I just said for dua is exactly the same thing for dhikr. Alright? So that is why, just like Imam Sudais and many other Imams before him, and I'm sure many more after him, have used and will continue to use du'as that are not mentioned in Hadith. Many Mashayikh of Tasawwuf did teach dhikr azkar that are not specifically mentioned in Hadith as they are taught, but there is nothing in that method of zikr. That's very important, and let me finish that part. Nothing in that method of zikr that goes against Sharia. Now, when you come into Sharia, that's a whole separate topic for another time, right? That is a world of fiqh and ijtihad, and sometimes there are differences and plurality of opinion over there. Some things that everybody agrees about, that you cannot do any zikr that violates the norms of gender segregation or gender attraction of Islam. You cannot do zikr that involves music, dance, etc. Some differences of opinion as to certain methods of zikr. Some jurists have felt that zikr involving movement is also not okay. Hadara, right? Other jurists have felt, no, it is okay. So that, and because they are valid scholars who have said it's okay, even though I may not personally follow that position, and I ascribe to that position, but that could come within valid difference of legal opinion in Islam, right? That's a whole separate topic, alright? So, you cannot do any dhikr that is against Sharia. The last part about zikr is Allama Ibn Abidin rahimahullah, who I feel is the last great Hanafi mujtahid, author of Radd al-Mukhtar, known more popularly and lovingly in Pakistan as Fatawa Shamia, has written another sign that zikr can become bid'ah. Even if you passed all these checks, there's another sign you have to make sure you don't have, and that is an yula'ima tarikuhu. An yula'ima tarikuhu, that you reprimand the person who leaves it, you chastise the person who leaves it, because that means you just elevated a nafil. So somebody doesn't come to zikr circle, you can't say anything to them. Somebody doesn't do zikr, you can't view them as less in any way, because zikr was nafil. Nafil meant ikhtiyar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you the choice to do it or not do it equally. Obviously, they're not in any way trying to diminish the benefits and virtues and merits of it. So if you are so attached to a zikr that you reprimand, chastise, look down on somebody, that's a sign that it's bid'ah, because you're not really viewing it as nafil. You may put the label on it, but the label doesn't matter how you're treating it. You're treating it as something above nafil, and you can't do that. So that's another check that the fuqaha put on this phenomenon of zikr. There were some jurists historically that had a backlash. The backlash was because some people did do zikr azkar that were against Sharia. Some people were guilty of what I just said, that they were reprimanding people who love zikr. So they did what sort of in English, or at least in American English, in British English is quite different. In American English we have to say that if you give someone an inch, they'll take a mile. So this is what they saw. They said, okay, Deen gives them an inch, but they're taking a mile. So what did they do? They tried to close the door. Now that was a reaction on their part, and the Deen of Islam tells every Muslim you should never be reactive, and most of all, ulama should never be reactive. But I can understand in the context and setting they were in why they felt that reaction was justified. But the reality is you can't take back the inch, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave that inch. How can you take back what He has given? Right? So what we can do, and this is just my own sort of way of, some of my terminology in English, but just my own way of understanding it, is you can build mile-high borders on that inch to protect that inch, to make sure people don't take it beyond the inch, but you can't take the inch back. You can't do that. You can't say, well, no, actually, brother, it is okay to do zikr, but because so many people take it too far, so many people go astray, so we're going to take back zikr altogether. You can't do that, right? You cannot specify and particularize what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has left unspecified. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Quran, اذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ ذِكْرًا كَثِيرًا, I did that for your Jummah, right? That you must remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly, and He has not restricted that to any particular way. He has not specified that to any particular way. He has left that open, just like He left dua open. For example, Allah said in Quran, لِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا, that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala belong the Asma'ul Husna, another very important ilm from the Ulum Islamiyah, right? And you should make dua to Him using them. How? There's no one single restricted way to do it. Even in hadith you wouldn't be able to find one detailed particular way to do it. You would find some snippets in hadith, but you're not restricted to them in any case. Because that's nafil ibadah, and it's that which Allah Ta'ala has left open. And finally, Allama Abdul Hayy al-Laknavi rahimahullah has written a book in Arabic, which has been translated actually by the Sheikh Zahir of Birmingham into English, on this notion of bid'ah and worship. And in that, Allama al-Laknavi rahimahullah clearly demonstrates that Sahaba Karam in the life of the Prophet ﷺ used to make types of zikr that the Prophet ﷺ didn't teach them. After the Prophet ﷺ passed away, Sahaba Karam made zikr that the Prophet ﷺ didn't teach them. So did Tabi'in and so did Tabai Tabi'in. And then the last and contrary to bid'ah is whatever the Sahaba Tabi'in, listen to this carefully, whatever the Sahaba Tabi'in and Tabai Tabi'in allowed for themselves, that's allowed for us. So if they allowed for themselves to do an extra additional dhikr as nafil ibadah that is not found in hadith, and it's allowed for us to do that. There's nothing special about them. In that sense, they don't have a unique status that they alone can make an extra dua and dhikr and we can't. No. What was allowed for them was allowed for us because the same deen that they had is the same deen that we have. So this explains now bay'ah, bid'ah and zikr. Last thing left was shaykh. Right? Oh, and I tried to use few sources that are available in English. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya rahimahullah. And that book's also been translated into English, in fact. We taught it in Pakistan as part of our course. He also, clearly, in that text, and I didn't bring that one with me, talks about shaykh and taking shaykh. Right? Now, what is shaykh? Shaykh is, very simply, three things. You may be surprised that I'm talking to you so openly in the first gathering. I wouldn't normally actually do that, right? But, you know, what's often the first may indeed be the last, because I don't know when I'm going to come to Cambridge again and see people again and when you're going to see me again. And sometimes I explain to people this way that in Pakistan, when you go as a guest to somebody's house, they like put a lot of food in your plate, and they keep putting food in your plate, and then when you kind of protest and tell them it's kind of a lot, they say, "Pata nahi aap kab dobara aayenge." Who knows when you will come to our house again? So I'm kind of doing the same thing with you. I'm talking at a fast speed. I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you because who knows when I will see you again and when you will see me again. That's the nature. It's my experience being this line for many, many years. And most of the faces we see, we don't see them again. There are a few that we see often. Many people you never end up seeing them again. Right? And because the Tasawwuf is again so misrepresented and underrepresented, I feel it's very important that we have to get the message out. It's an amanat that I have from my teacher. Alhamdulillah, I've been a student of Tasawwuf for 17 years. I am older than I look. And older than my American accent. The British accent gives you guys like extra 5-10 years in age. In the British accent. The American accent is very nice and casual. Right? Allahu Akbar. What can you do? So shaykh, what is shaykh? Shaykh is nothing more and nothing less than a tutor in zikr, a tutor in taqwa, and a tutor in tawbah. That's it. Shaykh is not the be-all and end-all of Islam. Shaykh is not, now I can only take all my tafsir and all my hadith and all my fiqh from him. No. You have many, many teachers. I myself have studied, alhamdulillah, and many ulama. It's not like I have to get everything from my shaykh. But real tuition, not for barakah. I'm amazed, I've met ulama who love to collect ijazas and hadith just for barakah. They didn't actually properly study those hadith under that muhaddith. Properly studying means the muhaddith, and you recite that hadith, you go into the commentaries, you go into the meaning of that hadith. That's called the study of hadith. And then there's this tabarruk and giving of ijazah. A couple of months, it happens in Pakistan. It happens, I give you barakah, you have ijazah for me and all the books, all the hadith I know. That's not actually learning, right? But seeking, people accept that there's some barakah in this. That's fine. I'm amazed at the same ulama who think there's barakah in this, they don't accept the barakah in real tasawwuf. It blows my mind, right? So tasawwuf shouldn't be treated like that either. You shouldn't take a shaykh just for barakah. And I know, and this is a problem, and that's what gives tasawwuf a bad name. We don't want tasawwuf to be something that's trendy, or something that's hip, or in these years the Isaac is Sufi, but later on it became Salafi. Oh yeah, back in the day it was like this, and then this day, He's made a mockery of the entire deen. You've made a mockery of the soul if you do that, but you make a mockery of the entire deen. Right? Tasawwuf is about learning. Right? And if you are Maulana Room, you will get a sheikh like Shams Tabriz. But if you're in first grade math, the chairman of Harvard Math is going to come and teach you addition. Right? But people have to make tasawwuf like just like another badge that they have. I'm bayat to Sheikh X. Okay, do you communicate with Sheikh X? Is Sheikh X aap ragra laga raha hai? Ragra. You need to know what ragra is. Asl cheez to ragra hai na. Ragra ke baghair kaise ho sakta hai? I say Urdu to enjoy myself. Don't worry, I always translate it for you. Don't panic. Don't panic. Right? Ragra is called tarbiyya. Moral training. Right? It's like me saying that, my name is registered as a patient under the chair of ophthalmology at Harvard Med School. Is that going to help me? Is that going to get me a prescription? Does he know my eyes? No, I need a local eye doctor who knows me, who looks into my eyes, who sees my eyes, who opens up a patient history file on me, who has a file, who I visit regularly, who can fix me, cure me, help me. Right? So this is another disservice to the tasawwuf that has become sometimes trendy. And then you see you have the trend and the counter trend and the reaction and the counter reaction. And then it just becomes a whole, something that it's relegated to your blogosphere and forums. All types of blogs and forums, and the Sufis on the Salafi forum and the Salafis going on the Sufi forum, and you guys just go at it with one another. And that's how you spend your time. Really, I would honestly say, forget haram. Or I could say this from the amount of time the young Muslim spends on halal internet Islamic surfing. If you spend that time on zikr, you become a waliullah. You think you don't have the time. You have the time, you use it in the wrong places. We are people of muta'ala and zikr. We are people of reading and remembrance. Instead we become people of surfing and commenting. We become people of surfing and commenting. This is what we are. Allahu Akbar. So Shaykh is actually a tutor. Tutor in zikr, what does that mean? That he instructs you with some zikr to do. And if you do it, because many people take the prescription, put it in their pocket, and then go. Imagine if the doctor gave you an antibiotic and you didn't take it. Or the doctor said take it 3 times a day for 7 days and come back to me. You come back to me and say, I took like a couple of tablets every now and then whenever I felt like it. So that's obviously why you're still sick. You were supposed to take it 3 times a day for 7 days. Dhikran kathira. That's what it says. Some things, the miqdar, the amount is matlub, the amount is important. If there's water 500 feet deep, you can dig 100 wells of 300 feet, you won't get a drop of water. So tutor and zikr. If you do the zikr, then the shaykh makes it better, works on the quality, right? Works on the quality, maybe sometimes also change the quantity. Tutor in taqwa and tawbah, that is through the bayan, sohbah, majlis, wa'ad, nasiha. That's how the tutoring in taqwa and tawbah takes place. That's what shaykh is. So now we have tasawwuf, we have zikr, bayah, bidat, shaykh. What else could there be? Silsila and tariqah, right? What is that, right? So, what does it mean? This is a problem because a lot of people misuse this. It's not meant to be some cult identity. It's not a badge. I went to that gathering, I took I'm a Naqshbandi, or I'm a Chishti, or I'm a Ba'aluri, or Habaib, or I don't know what they call Tariqa, maybe they call Haddadi Tariqa, right? So, and then next thing you know, right, all the people, and then the person who's not, and this is also called bid'ah. If you give the other person a feeling of mughayara, if he feels ghair to you, if the other person feels that, that person is this and I'm not, and he feels ghair, he feels like he's other, you made it a bid'ah. You just made yourself a bid'ah by that. Not supposed to feel ghair. And it's unfortunate that these identities, I'm going to give you an example of identity that every one of you have. You may not have known it. The Quran al-Kareem exists in 7 different recitations. 7 mutawatir, canonical recitations. The vast majority you recite in Hafs. But you don't call yourself Hafsi. When you meet a Moroccan, you don't call him Warshi. Right? He's reciting the riwayah of Warsh. But in reality, he is reciting in a distinct, separate style of Qiraat. And you're reciting in a distinct, separate style of Qiraat. Hafs. But it's perfectly fine. You don't feel ghair to one another. That's how it's supposed to be with Hanafi, Shafi, Maliki, Hanbali, and Salafi. If the Salafis could ever agree, they should just be a fifth madhab. And it's that simple. There's no problem with that. If you follow the usul of Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim, and that's fine by us. And these people have their living muftis, and you had Sheikh bin Baz, Sheikh Uthaymeen, Rahimahullah. It's fine. Because they're from Ahl Taqwa, and you have to understand it as well. Because the quote-unquote Sufi ISOCs in UK are like too anti-Salafi. They're from the people of Taqwa. What's the matter with you? They believe haram to be haram. They believe hijab to be fard. They believe sunnah to be sunnah. They believe hijab to be haram. They may have a slightly different understanding of ijtihad, right? And if they choose that in tasawwuf, they don't want to take the tasawwuf through shaykh, and they have no problem. If somebody says, I'd rather confine myself to the zikrs and hadith, they say no problem. Just like if we prayed, if Imam Sadiq one night just recited the dua that's mentioned in hadith and mitra, we'd say that's fine, it's no problem, it's completely fine, that's also fine. If you want to do that, we have no problem with that. Completely fine with that. Alright? So it should not lead to a feeling of mughayara. It should not make the other person feel like the other. That's wrong. It's not a good thing. Then you're not, my own Shaykh calls us, they're not Sufi, they're goofy. Allahu Akbar. He said that in an English talk once in South Africa. That these people, they're not Sufi, they're goofy. Allahu Akbar. We have a lot of goofies, huh? Not a lot of proper Sufis. Even Ibn Taymiyyah in his Fatawa understood. He made three categories of people in Tasawwuf. The first category, he said, that they're A'immatul Huda. A'imma is plural of Imam. They're the Imams of guys who were Mashayikh Islam. And they're the Sheikhs of Islam. But those are the ones that weren't goofy. Those are the ones that were Sufi, right? And he mentions names. He writes the names. He writes a list of names in Fatawa. Fudail ibn Iyad, Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, Junaid Baghdadi, rahimahullah ta'ala ajmain. Right? And he knew, Ibn Taymiyyah knew that Sheikh Abdul Qadir took bay'ah. He knew that. It's not like anybody didn't know that. He knows Sheikh Abdul Qadir took bay'ah. He knows that he taught zikr that wasn't it. And he's calling him an Imam of Huda and Sheikh of Islam. Because that was a true Sufi. That was absolutely, they were awliya right? So this is in a very sort of, very fast, very intense introduction to you to Tazkiyah. The last thing I will do, right, because, and then I'll stop there for the questions, is what are the aims of Tazkiyah? What are the aims and objectives? Number one, to leave all sin, both Zahir and Batin. This is the number one goal of Tasawwuf. And in these days, most people enter Tasawwuf for this reason. Like the dirty piece of clothing that needs to go into the laundry, right? The only condition you have to be to go into the laundry machine is you have to be dirty. Earlier on, Tasawwuf used to be to get the qurb and marifat of Allah. That was the clean piece of clothing, trying to get itar and perfume. That's a different type of Tasawwuf. That still exists, but that is, after a person has made themselves a person of taqwa and ikhlas and sabr and shukr. So the first goal of Tasawwuf is to leave all sin outwardly and inwardly, to stop doing it and to stop wanting it. The second goal is to replace the bad characteristics with the good characteristics. To replace arrogance and pride with humility. Real humility. Humility is not just the way you speak or the way you talk. Humility is an inner thing. It's the way you view yourself. Right? It's the way you view yourself. Unfortunately, in a lot of Pakistan, DC country, you have a lot of that false humility. You have a lot of people who bazar barajas, who are, like that. But inside, Allahu Akbar, they don't have that humility. Right? Americans, I like to think, are much more forthright and frank. Not to put my nisbat with that place, but what can you do? Some of their good attributes may have crept into us, especially they were born there. Very open people. Very open, friendly. The British are stereotypically known, maybe unfairly, as being quite the opposite. Having a lot of tasannu and takalluf, right? Khair, so to replace the bad qualities with the good qualities, right? Means to get the sifat of the mu'mineen that are mentioned in Quran. These are words in Quran, mukhlisin, muttaqeen, awabin, sabirin, shakirin, zakirin. These are words for us. We were supposed to be that. We were supposed to be the alladhina amanu who are not content with being just alladhina amanu. We were supposed to be people who tried to become sabirin, shakirin, zakirin. So to get sifat al-mu'minana, the sifat of the mu'mineen. Third is to get yaqeen in one's iman. As Imam Ghazali explains that when a person does zikr, they experience Allah. How? I'll show you from Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ. Remember me, I will remember you. person will feel that. In some way, it's hard to explain in words. But obviously, I think you can understand rationally that if Allah remembers a person, it can't be entirely unfelt. If Allah remembers you, you're going to start feeling it. When you feel that, then you get yaqeen because you felt Allah. Like a person says, no, I have first-hand experience. They say that to you to convince you they're absolutely certain of something. They say, I have first-hand experience. This person will have such a yaqeen that insha'Allah you put that person in a room with 100 atheists and close the door for 1,000,000 years, he'll come out with his iman intact. Yaqeen and iman. It's another goal to someone. Fourth is to have a passion in a'mal. To do a'mal salih passionately, lovingly. To enjoy salah. And we love to give this example, to enjoy salah the way we enjoy ice cream. That's how they enjoyed salah. Now for some kids here, they enjoyed salah, they enjoyed their namaz, they enjoyed their namaz the way we enjoy ice cream, every spoon of chocolate ice cream. Allahu Akbar, mashallah, subhanallah. We never get tired of it. We get a new pleasure every spoon. That's how they prayed salah. They got a new pleasure in every, not just every rak'ah, not just every ruku and sujood, every tasbih, every tell her male sheikh that she has those feelings. That's no problem. She can tell that to a female murida, right? Or, because a lot of the cures are not gender specific, or an anonymous question, or maybe the sheikh is given, and that's why there's bayan, right? The sheikh has in a talk, and maybe you can listen online, has already addressed this issue of lust, so the woman can just listen to that, right? That is why it's not just about Q&A, right? And a lot of the instruction is done through what we call bayan in the Urdu sense, wa'az and nasiha, right? Exhortation, explication, explanation, right? So maybe finally I would say that the sheikh is not trying to get to know the woman's personality, right? You're not supposed to share your personality with the sheikh. You're just trying to learn zikr from the sheikh, telling him about your zikr while keeping your personality hidden, right? And learning about problems that you have, those that are not issues of haya, like hasad, that's not an issue, right? Anger, love for the world, a lot of the things you can ask the male sheikh. And those that do have a certain haya element, then to either have generic questions or have the husband ask or have a male family member ask, or, you know, ideally the sheikh would be a person who is expounding on these things generally, and you can listen to that in talks. All right, and like I said, finally, for the more individualized attention, if there's, especially if the sheikh's wife is somebody who's also in tasawwuf, then you can be personally tutored on those matters that have a certain haya, you understand, right? A certain modesty attached with them based on gender by the wife of the sheikh. So it's just a little bit different. Like a lot, you know, see, if the male Sahaba were hanging out with the Prophet, the female Sahabiyat used to hang out with the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen, right? And they used to ask a lot of questions of the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen. And sometimes they would then ask the Prophet, right? So similar model is there. Obviously you give bayat to barakah just for the sake of it to some sheikh somewhere. You don't know him, you don't know his wife, you're not in touch with him or his wife, then it's difficult. The learning won't take place. The learning won't take place. And for the women, so what we made for you is we have, my wife teaches free online classes for the women. So I'm home free as far as that is concerned. And we've given you the brochures for that, right? And we give the lectures, but all the tutoring and instruction is done by my wife on that, in that program. For the men, we have nothing online for you. You have to come to us live. You can listen to the talks online, but as far as the training, that's better done live. Yes?
One question. You mentioned before there was the sunnah ibadah and then the nafil ibadah.
Yes, yes.
I'm wondering, is the sunnah ibadah, so for example, the dhikr and the dua that's established from the Quran and the hadith, are they in any way superior to the nafil ibadah? And if they are, then should one exhaust the ibadah and the sunnah first and then go to the nafil, or can you do them in tandem?
Okay. First of all, the two ways the word sunnah is used. One is the way the word sunnah is used in our deen is that which is mentioned in hadith. So I'm going to call that ma'thur. Okay? And the other way the word sunnah is used as a legal category in Sharia that has been established by the fuqaha, mentioning sort of levels and categories of obligation and commendation, which is wajib, sunnah. And there's a lot. If you want to go to the most, farz, wajib, sunnah, mu'akkada, then sunnah, ghair mu'akkada, slash mandub, slash muslim, slash nafil, mubah, makruh, tanzim, makruh, tahrimi, haram. Right? So I was using it in the talk in the legal shari sense. And if you remember, I said I can't teach all of the fiqh of bidah, so I was talking in a fiqh sense. Those ibadah that are not at the level of emphasized sunnah, but those ibadah that are nafil, slash mandub, slash mustab, slash sunnah, ghair mu'akkada. So that clarifies that. In answer to your question, however, if we were to take sunnah in another sense, so that I would rephrase the question, that those nafil ibadah that are mentioned in hadith, ma'thur and marwi, in riwayat, and those nafil ibadat that have been designed or developed or transmitted from mashayikh later on, is there some benefit in them, right? So you will find that all of, I shouldn't say all because I can speak for everybody, our own mashayikh in our own books, we have added, for example, what we call the masnoon a'mal, sort of in our tradition, right? Those du'ats and dhikrs that are mentioned, that you should do them as well. As far as to which is more beneficial, again, in very emotional, people would make it sound like that is more beneficial, right? And if I was to use that again on dua, then I would say, okay, before you make any dua for yourself, first make all the duas that are in Quran, then make all the duas that are hadith, right? And you guys don't even know that yet. I mean, I'll take your side, but remember you can recite read it as well, right? But basically, that would pretty much eliminate almost all the duas that you do. So it seems to me that there should be a healthy balance. And it's not a question always of what's better. That's a very sort of, a capitalist human way of profit maximization, so sort of reward and ajr and swab maximization and utility maximization, or a legacy of that emotional appeal that if it's in hadith it must be better, right? Because then if you see, I mean, I'm not trying to train you on that, but what we normally do when we teach people this is that you have to take a premise and flush out its logical conclusions. So if it's in hadith, it would be better than what Abu Hurairah was doing, is he chose ghair afzal over afzal when he started doing all these zikrs. Now we can't think Sahaba would do that, right? So actually there has to be a balance, and there's no sense in one being greater than the other. To do only zikr adhkar that are mentioned by Mashayikh and to leave altogether those that are narrated in hadith, that would be wrong. It wouldn't be a sin, but that would be, you could say, less better. That would not be afzal. To do both, in my view, is afzal, and to do only ones that are in hadith, in my view, are in the middle. But other ulama, their view is that to do the ones only in hadith, that is afzal. Right? And part of the reason on that, again, I'll give you the example of dua, right? So one of our old friends who was back in England now, Mufti Abdur Rahman bin Yusuf, he gathered this, or he translated, a compilation of du'as of Hasan al-Basri, called Istighfarat, right? Now if you look at, there are many istighfars that are mentioned in the hadith, but I'll give you one example from Hasan al-Basri. So he says that, oh Allah, I seek your forgiveness from that sin, that I did it, and I made tawbah for it, then I did the sin again, then I made tawbah again, then I broke the tawbah again, and fell in that sin again. You can't find that in the hadith, because Nabi Kareem Sallallahu never made that dua. I think we can all understand why. The Prophet would never make a dua like that, that, oh Allah, I seek your forgiveness for that sin that I did, and then I made tawbah for, then I broke the tawbah and I did that sin. So for that person who's in that particular state, that they're finding themselves in sin, then they cry at night, they make tawbah over that sin, they last 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 days, and they do the sin again, then they cry at night. So for that person who finds himself in that state, I have no problem saying that the dua of Hasan al-Basri is afzal for them than the dua mentioned in hadith, because Sayyidina Rasulullah would most likely say the same thing, because for him the maqsad was using the dua as a means to get to tawbah. And these words more closely map the emotional state that that person is in. Whereas these words map the emotional state. The Prophet was in, this is the destination, but this is where he's at. So using this may be better for him at this moment. I have no problem saying that. At moments it would be like that. There may be some great awliya that for them this is better, right? And actually in our own line of Tasawwuf, Shaykh Ahmad Suhaimi has mentioned that after the beginning stage, when a salik, a student of Tasawwuf, has reached a certain level, then the more afzal for him is the work of the Anbiya, to do khidmat of deen, the deed of sunnah, ihya sunnah. In fact, he writes in one of his letters, that's really something that should be studied, and then that's after when we're done with this whole Ghazali round now. Next round is going to be Maktubat of Imam Rabbani Rahimahullah. He writes in his letters that those who revive the Sharia and Sunnah, they are infinitely better than the Sufis. Right? But there may be a person in a particular state that for him he needs to be Sufi to get himself out of sin. He's not ready to revive the Sunnah and Sharia. Or if he starts doing it, I'll also show you this, if he starts doing it, he may be able to benefit others, but he's going to hurt himself. Because when you revive Sunnah and Sharia with others without having taken yourself out of sin, you may be able to help others, but you're harming yourself. You're actually harming yourself. Harming yourself. Yes, can you take the question for the women?
May I ask a short question?
Yeah.
Has the Maktubat of Shaykh Safindi been translated?
It has been translated, but not in entirety. There have been selections of it translated by 2-3 different people in English. It's been translated entirely from Persian into Urdu and entirely into Arabic. And I was unclear whether the Arabic was translated from the Persian into Arabic or from the Urdu into Arabic. I don't know that. All right. Okay. Let's see if I can combine them. Okay, now they're quite different questions, so to take them separately. Alright. Number one, the first one that I open. Question, when we make dhikr, does it have to be a fixed ritual, or maybe simply, and the person that's put in quotes here, speak to Allah and praise Him in our own words? Yes. You may simply, quote unquote, speak to Allah and praise Him in your own words. That would count as dhikr. You can do dhikr in any way that you want, as long as it's not against Sharia. That is an option if you wish to be trained in a particular method of dhikr. Right? Let me also share with you why is it that people seem to suggest that that option is preferable. So I'll go back to the example of tajweed. Whenever a person studies tajweed, what do? They take a book. People who are from the subcontinent normally study Nurani Qaida or Iqra Qaida. People who are from the Arab will study, for example, Jazariya or some other famous book. There are a few books that have gained widespread currency. What is that? That is called a nisab. That's a curriculum of tajweed. Who made that book? Mahireen, experts of that curriculum. Who's going to teach that book? An expert of that field. So people normally, if somebody said to me that it's necessary to read Nurani Qaida or Jazariya and have a Qari Sahib to do tajweed, I say necessary? No. You can learn tajweed however you want. But the empirical experience of the ummah is to learn tajweed through a laid out step-by-step curriculum that has been designed by masters of tajweed, and secondly, to study that curriculum under a living master of tajweed has proven to be far more efficacious and beneficial in learning tajweed. But could you do tajweed any old way you want? Yeah, as long as you get to the goal, because the asl is the goal. Yeah, sure, why not? So we say the same thing with zikr, right? You can remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala any way you want, right? But it may be possible, I would just suggest you to entertain that possibility, that the masters of this field, the effort that they put in based on the experience and their knowledge in designing curricula of zikr, to study one such curriculum under a living master of that, or a living instructor of that, maybe that may be more beneficial. There's no harm in trying that also, and there's no harm in doing zikr on your own in any particular way. Alright? Second question is, okay. Sorry, but I have to not read out the question. Okay. See if I can combine this so that we can even make it more unknown. Okay. I've got three questions. I'm going to sort of combine two of them and then take one separately. The ones that are combining is that how does one practice tazkiyah, right? And what, how can we do this at a practical level? Because sometimes people find different problems. One problem a person will find when they try to do this alone, just like you find when you study, is laziness, right? And you find that many times, just like in your academics, for many, but not all of us, mashallah, but some of us, right? That whenever we find, I'm teasing them too much, so, no, we're happy actually. It's our happiness. May Allah Ta'ala be happy with you. So, many times we want to do things, we're unable to do them. That's true for everybody, in every sphere of life. There's things that you genuinely want to do, and you're equally genuinely unable to do them on your own. That's why you need to plug yourself into a program. You need to connect yourself to a movement. This is my view, that it's more beneficial for you, it's easier for you. If you can't study well, you need to go sit in the library, right? You need to make a study group. Another problem some people have is family. Sometimes when people worship, there's a certain haya that, okay, you kind of don't want to worship in front of people because so many people are around. I share a room with so-and-so, right? Or people around, or I come to the prayer room and I start doing my zikr in the prayer room. So X is going to walk in and say, oh, you've become a big Sufi. So I just want to do privately, but of course in my college, oh my God, the type of things that go on over there, right? So it's not one of the maybe ideal conducive environment for zikr. Or sometimes for people that may be their own parents, sometimes it's their spouse. There can be a whole host of reasons, right? And so, this is why I found that actually the zikr that our Mashaykh taught is zikr of the heart is very helpful in this way, because that's a silent, secret zikr. Well, nobody knows that you're doing it. You can do zikr of the heart while at home, while with friends, while with family. But, if a person feels awkwardness, it really depends. If it's an awkwardness and a shyness that comes from your own worry of seeming ostentatious, you have to fight that. Shaykh Ashraf Ali Thanvi Rahimahullah made this very clear, that this is actually whispering from shaitan. That shaitan makes you think that the reason you're doing it is to show off. And he makes you feel as if you're aware of others, where actually you were just doing it to please Allah. You just wanted to do zikr to remember Allah. So if it's that, you need to kind of fight your awkwardness. That's also majaz al-nafs. One of the majaz al-nafs is to fix those things that are tabi'at, that gives us hesitation in zikr. But if it's not that, it's like that, no, it's actually that the people around me are going to be upset if I do zikr. Or they're going to, it's going to cause a problem for me, or my mom's going to flip out and say, first you start a job, now you're sitting on the musalla. Oh, what's the matter with you, right? So in that case, yeah, it's unfortunate, but you maybe find yourself in a situation where you may actually have to sort of surreptitiously do zikr. Or do zikr in the middle of the depths of the night, or when no one's around, or when nobody notices, so that the people around you don't feel it. So it depends really on that notion of shyness. And the last question for today, inshallah, and then I think in 2 minutes it's time for adhan, right? After Maghrib, then we can, we traveled 3.5 hours to come to you, so we're happy to sit with you from Maghrib to Isha, however long you want, inshallah. But last question before we break for Salah. Okay, how necessary is it to have a shaykh? Basically, that's what the question is. The word necessary in English, we normally, when we translate that in our mind in Arabic, we think fard. So it's not fard to have a shaykh, it's not wajib to have a shaykh. It's sunnah. It's sunnah. Actually, it's sunnah. I wouldn't even call it nafil. I'm actually bold enough to call it sunnah. Right? But it's not one of the required sunnahs. It's one of the sunnahs that if you don't do them, it won't be sin. There are two types of sunnahs, very simply. One type of sunnah that if you don't do it, you incur sin. And there's another type of sunnah that if you don't do it, there won't be any sin. Like imamah, wearing the turban. If I don't wear a turban, there's no sin. Zero sin. I get zero sin if I don't wear it. Right? So that's what I call sort of a non-obligatory type of sunnah. The other sunnahs are obligatory. The other sunnahs are obligatory. That's another topic. We won't do that for you on the first trip. I'm very sorry on you.
One example, maybe.
Huh?
We'll
tell the boys. We'll tell the boys after prayer, inshallah. Yes, all right. So it's not necessary, but like I'm suggesting to you, and really from my own experience, it's beneficial. Commonly, but it's so used that it's become a bit cliche. But some people love to give the example of being a doctor. That isn't necessary to go to medical school to become a doctor. Couldn't I read the books on my own? I leave it for the medical school students to answer that question, right? I can tell you in my own field, no, right? I can tell you no. If you say I want to become a talib, a student of Islam, can I do it on my own? I have the books, I'll say no, you can't. You can't do that. Not unless you have teachers, not unless you have colleagues, not unless you're in an environment, not unless if there's formal learning. So the formalization of learning is something that we accept in every sphere of our life. Why is it that we're hesitant about it when it comes to our deen? And then some of us accept it in every other area of the deen. Why are we hesitant about it when it comes to zikr? We accept formalized learning of tajweed. We accept formalized learning of tafsir, of hadith, of fiqh, of usul, of aqidah, of marriage. Why is zikr the only thing that we don't accept formalized learning in? The same benefits that you see in having formal learning programs and all of the other things, you will see the same benefits over here. But is it necessary? No. The last question that we were given, it was part B of this question, was that how do you choose a shaykh? You choose a shaykh in a number of ways. It's a very personal choice. It's a very personal choice. Even Mashaykh of Tasawwuf have written about this. Number one thing they will say that you must find a shaykh who follows the Quran, Sunnah, and Sharia. So first response, people like you will have, I myself don't have ilm. How can I assess somebody whether they follow Quran and Sunnah when I myself don't have the ilm of that? So for that is to look at the ulama. Who are the mashayikh that the ulama respect, the ulama invite, right? That's a sign that the ulama know the Quran and Sunnah. If they accept this person, that's a sign, okay, at least there's no Sharia problem there. Second is that the shaykh should not be leading a cult following, cult movement, have love for the world, love of status, love of celebrity, right? Shaykh shouldn't be like that. Third is that now this is something that you can do more easily, it's a more personable level. Third, okay, before I do the personal one, third is that the Shaykh himself must have been the student of a Shaykh. Who must have been the student of a Shaykh? There must be sanad. Like classically in Hadith, you studied Bukhari only from somebody who had sanad. Alhamdulillah, we studied Bukhari from two muhaddith who themselves studied Bukhari, from muhaddithin who themselves studied Bukhari, from etc. Back to Imam Bukhari, whose own sanad for every hadith is written in his text. So the Shaykh must fall in a line of continuous and unbroken chain of transmission of teacher-student relationship back to Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And fourth, which is the more personal one, is fourth and fifth, which are the two more personal ones, is number 4 is that when you sit with that Shaykh or you listen to the words of the Shaykh, your heart should feel more love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your heart should feel inclined towards the deen, and you should have some effect. Different people take different benefit in different ways. Some people sit by the fire and they get warm, but only while they stay by the fire. Some people, when they leave the fire, they stay a bit warm. Some people actually take a piece of the fire with them. Some people light up their fire. Some people actually can go light other people's fire after having sat with the fire. So everybody will benefit differently, but that you feel some effect, some desire that I also want to have